Welcome to the Mom Self-Care Podcast, your safe space to finally focus on YOU. I'm Chari Twitty-Hawkins, your self-care coach for moms, praying wife, and mom of four. And I know that being a Christ-centered mom is such a beautiful calling, but it can be so draining. That's why it's important to make sure you are filling your own cup. On this podcast, we'll discuss practical, holistic self-care strategies to help nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Because a mama who fills her own cup pours that back into her family with true peace and joy. Tune in for honest conversations about motherhood and self-care because you matter too. Blessings, mamas, and welcome to the Mom Self-Care Podcast. I am Chari Twitty-Hawkins, your host and self-care coach for moms. And while we're still at the beginning of a new year, 2025, I'd like to talk about the importance and the art of letting go. And that's whether it's something that happened in the past, negative thoughts you have, toxic relationships, whatever it may be. Think about in your life, what is it that you need to let go of? And even if you don't know right now, maybe as you're listening to this episode, you will think about something, will say, aha, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been holding on to this thing, carrying this burden that I really need to let go of. I know with me, I was meeting with my business besties, I call them, the winning circle. And we were thinking about, of course, 2024. And I was thinking about, I said, man, I'm not where I want to be. I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish as a business owner in 2024, but I have to let that go. Because as I felt myself starting to harp on it and dwell on it, I started to feel sorry for myself. I started to feel resentment. I started just to feel like, Chari, I can't believe that you did and did not do certain things. And I said, wait a minute, that is not helpful. That's not helpful because holding on to that just really takes me, I don't know if you can relate, but maybe you can, into like this hole that I don't need to go in and that God does not want me to be in. So maybe that's something you can relate to, thinking about, hey, maybe you did not accomplish what you wanted to accomplish last year, or maybe this last week, or maybe today, and you start to really harp on it, and which is what we as moms do a lot. Just as moms, criticize ourselves and just go deeper and deeper and down into this hole. But we have to learn how to forgive ourselves and let go. So I hope this episode helps you do that. So make sure you save it, come back and listen to it later, take notes, and share with the mama that you love. So I like to talk about why letting go is so essential, it's so important, because when you don't let go of old habits, toxic relationships, mindsets that do not serve you, then it stops you from growing into the beautiful, amazing woman and mother and wife, if you're married, that God wants you to be. When you hold on to those negative thoughts, it keeps you stuck. And sometimes it will take you back. You know, are you like, or people say, don't go back, or girl, don't let nobody take you back to who you used to be. That can happen. And also when you hold on to those toxic relationships, you do not open up space and allow room for loving relationships to come in. There's a difference between when you have a toxic relationship, somebody speaking negatively to you, somebody maybe they're not speaking negatively to you, but maybe they're using you, taking advantage of you. But having a loving relationship, that those people will love on you. And when you need space, they're like, girl, go spend some time by yourself. They're uplifting you, all these things. That is what you need. You need loving relationships. And when you hold on to negative habits, such as trying to be perfect, I've talked about this before, that causes mom burnout. When you're trying to be perfect, you don't reach it, so you feel bad, you have that mom guilt, then you try again, same emotions, you're feeling bad, and it's over and over, and it's this cycle. So when you do not let go of that mindset of I have to be perfect, and then of course your action showing you trying to be perfect over and over again, you continue to stay in that cycle, and it causes, as I said, burnout, exhaustion, even anxiety, because you're worried about, oh my gosh, am I not going to do this right the next time? And when you start to let go of those things, then it helps so much with your emotional health and your emotional wellness. You're able to let go of that weight, of the fear, of the anxiety, of the resentment towards yourself and towards others. And I often say that Us as moms, we're trying to play God when we're trying to be perfect and we're trying to do all the things. But when you let go of that negative mindset, then you're able to open up and say to God, I'm going to let you have your way, whether it's with your children, because you don't know, they keep acting up no matter what you do, or whether it's your marriage or your business or yourself, whether you're like, oh my gosh, I can't seem to let go of this feeling. And you're able to open up to God and say, Lord, help me because I cannot do this on my own. My preacher often says that. He's like, how many of y'all know that you cannot? How many of y'all have been up in the midnight hour saying, Lord, help me, crying? Everybody else is asleep, but you are up and you're asking God to help me because you can't do it on your own. And I'm like, yes, Lord, I'm putting my hand up. Y'all who are watching on YouTube, y'all see me. I'm putting my hand up because I've been there. Have you been there? Don't let you not being able to let go of whatever mindset or habit stop you from being able to lay those problems at God's feet and letting Him take care of that for you. And when you let go, you're able to have so much more peace, so much more peace because you're not trying to do everything, you're not trying to handle everything. And when you're letting go of those negative mindsets, you're able to be more at peace and you have more clarity because you're letting God lead you, because you're realizing that, hey, this isn't really a priority right now. This is what I need to be focused on. You're more clear. So now I encourage you to reflect on what you need to release in your life. So if you are able to, sit down and type it up on your phone or write it down. And if you're not, remember I said save this episode, come back and listen and pause here and ask yourself, what habits are no longer serving me? What are those things that when you do them, they cause stress, they cause anxiety, you feel not good about yourself? What are those habits that are no longer serving you? Write those down. And then next, write down what mindsets are no longer serving me. And this is in a positive way. What are things that I'm thinking that are no longer serving me? I posted on Facebook a couple of days ago that moms don't realize that their view of motherhood and self-care happens way before they become moms. So when you think about how when you were growing up, your mom, your aunts, your grandmas were celebrated for being super mom and doing all the things, then you will feel some kind of way when you hear me say, take time to yourself. It's okay to pamper yourself. It's okay to delegate. You're going to feel some kind of way because you were brought up showing that mom's supposed to do all the things. And she's a good mom when she does all the things. When you guys know, if you listen to my podcast, that you're a great mom, even when when you delegate, you're a smarter mom. You're a more fulfilled and more relaxed mom when you delegate because you're not trying to do all the things. So again, ask yourself, what mindsets are no longer serving you? What mindsets cause you to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to do so many things. I have to be perfect. What is it? I just said one of them. You have to be perfect. What are those mindsets? Is it you're not good enough? Is it your kids don't love you? Is it no matter what you do, it's not enough? What is that for you? Write that down, write those down. And then ask yourself, what relationships are no longer serving you in a positive way? What relationships are just draining you? Like, hey, maybe y'all been best friends for 20, 30 years. But when you look at where y'all are right now, it is absolutely draining you. I had to actually, back in the day, and my husband kind of had called it, but I didn't want, how you don't want to listen. Like, that's my girl. She been there for me. But eventually I had to let her go because even though we were good friends, we had been good friends for a while. She has supported me through some stuff. But it got to a point to where almost every time we got on the phone, she was complaining. She was complaining and she would stay in that place. And so I had to say, oh my gosh, I had to realize this relationship is not serving me in a positive way anymore. And so I unfortunately, however you look at it, had to let her go. And I had a period of feeling bad about it. But eventually I realized I had more peace when I separated myself from her. I had so much more peace. So ask yourself, what relationships are draining you and not filling you? And write those down. And you may, like I said, you may feel like, man, that's my girl. That's my whoever, maybe family, maybe friends, maybe coworkers, whoever. Maybe somebody you're in a relationship with, a romantic relationship with. Because you're like, oh my gosh, like if I really look at the depth of this relationship right now, it is no longer serving me in a positive way, almost at all. Some people might say not at all, but you're just so used to that being in that you're like, hey, this is my normal. This is how it's supposed to be. But sometimes when you really reflect on, is this a good thing? No, it's not. So write that down. And maybe those are some relationships you need to release or love them from afar. Like I said, it may be family. You need to love them from afar. You need to step back because you still love them near your family, but you guys being as close as you are is harmful to you. So now that you know the things that you need to let go of, whether it's people, mindsets, habits, you're going to want to take these steps to start the process of letting go. And that's one thing we just did. We just went through this, acknowledging what you need to let go. Second, you want to pray and ask God to guide you to what do you need to say? What do you need to do? And ask Him to guide you through the process. Because everything, you're not going to be able to be like, that relationship is over. That negative mindset is over. Those negative habits are over. It's not going to go like that. It's going to be a process, just like you've had these thoughts for maybe decades. It's going to be a process. I've talked about this in previous podcast episodes. It's going to take time to shift your mindset. So if you need help with shifting your mindset, go check out my previous podcast episodes. If you need help with changing old habits, go check out my previous podcast episodes. But just asking God to guide you along the process and give you strength to be intentional and consistent when you're creating those habits. So that's the third thing. Create new habits to replace the old habits. Create new mindsets, new thoughts, new ways that you view the world, new ways that you view yourself and who you want to become. Your habits, your relationships, and your mindset need to align with who you want to become, not who you are right now necessarily or who you were back then. Because remember, we don't want to go back, especially if it's not a good thing. But you want your new habits, new mindset, and new relationships or adjustments to your old relationships because God may say, I don't want you to let go of that person, but you need to sit down and talk with them and let them know this is what you need in this relationship. And then if they're like, okay, let's do this, then that is what you do. But that still aligns with who you want to become instead of taking you back to who you used to be and don't want to be again. And as I often say, show yourself grace. If you mess up, if you fall off track, show yourself grace. Pray and ask God to get you back where you need to be so you can focus on creating a new you and be stepping into the amazing woman of God that God wants you to be. And I just like to read the scripture to you. You may have heard it before, but this is just a reminder. Isaiah 43:18-19. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. And I love this because, of course, he's talking about stop looking back, but he also talks about, hey, I'm doing a new thing. So if you're looking back, you're missing out on that new thing. So you don't want to miss out on your blessings because you are looking back. So even if that's your motivation, if you're like, hey, I don't want to miss out on my blessings that God has for me, for my family, for my legacy, let me stop looking back and let me look forward and do what I need to do to move forward to becoming who God has me to be. And I like to give a shout out to a review left on the podcast on YouTube from Wendy. And she says, great podcast, Chari. I wish there would have been podcasts or YouTube when I had kids so I could get advice like this. So thank you so much, Wendy. I was like, oh, I love that. I hear that a lot because we have moms who listen, and then we have grandmas who listen as well. And they're like, girl, I wish I heard this when I was raising my kiddos. But it helps even if you're a grandmother, because we have grandmothers that are raising their grandchildren, and you may have adult children in the home, things like that. So this advice still helps. So make sure if you as well, if this podcast has blessed you, leave a review so I can give you a shout out. Save this and listen to it later, and share with the mama you love. Until next time, take care. God bless. Thanks so much for joining me for the Mom Self-Care Podcast. I hope you feel inspired to make yourself a priority too. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Share this podcast with another mama you love and leave a review. Also, feel free to let me know what you would like to hear about in future episodes by visiting me on Instagram at CIC Inspire Me. Until next time, take some time to take care of YOU, because you matter too.